When a person has something to hide from, or life becomes too tough to endure, there was always one option: bury it and leave. People who abandoned these troubles and vanished were said to have run away and joined the circus, a haven for those who needed to abandon their old lives and begin anew, with a new name in a new place, a new identity to replace the old. Usually, this is by the person's choice. Sometimes, as is the case for the next mental world, it was a forceful infliction caused by someone else. With the Psychic Seven now reunited, everyone comes together to help the final founding member, Lucrecia Mux. Up until this point, the goal of these mental excursions was about forming better coping strategies for the trauma they all sustained. While Lucy's arguably still does, there are two differences. One, her trauma stems from a different source than the others, and two, any misstep could unleash a genocidal alter ego that is intent on raining terror upon the world. So yeah, the stakes are far higher. Ford's plan is for him and Rasputin to enter together and dig a new grave to banish the Maligula complex into, a deeper one. While the plan is questionable at best, this is what they're doing, so we are along for the ride. The question that the next two episodes will tackle is, how did Ford originally seal Maligula? And how did Lucy slowly unravel his work? Let's dive in together and find out, starting with the Flea Circus. A briefcase rests on a stand, small in comparison to Raz and his mentor. A visualization of how the world inside this briefcase is only a small part of all that is contained inside her cognition. But Ford shrunk her down to fit inside, convincing her that this is all there was, afraid of what Lucy may find if she climbs out. Inside the case is a handcrafted flea circus. Bugs operating it wear masks, tricking Nona into believing that they are her family. All of them give a performative task that is death-defying and dangerous, causing the matriarch to worry for their safety. What we are seeing is a mental construct designed to both cover up her true memories while simultaneously distracting her from thinking too deeply about it. In previous videos, we discussed the idea of confabulation. This is the filling of memory gaps with false misinterpretation or distorted memories. It is not the same as lying to ourselves. Lying requires conscious manipulation. Confabulation is something we are unaware of when it happens. However, a third party can trick another into confabulation without their knowledge. This is called the forced confabulation effect. Another can use a variety of techniques to implant false memories or thoughts in another's mind. While this may seem like science fiction, it is not. Let's look at a real court case which involved child witnesses as an example. The defense attorney informed the witness that someone at the scene recalled a woman in a green dress. They then asked the children what they remember about her. Each of them recounted the events about this woman in green. Later, it was revealed that she never existed in the first place. The attorney placed the idea of her presence in the children's head. Since this came from a trusted source, the kids had no reason to disbelieve it. As a result, they were tricked into confabulating false memories. Their false recollection of events was then used as evidence that their testimony could not be trusted. When we are given false information from a trusted source, we categorize it as true. The rest of our mental ecosystem must then find equilibrium with the foreign intruder, incorporating it alongside other things that are known, so that the fake fact does not contradict the existing knowledge. If left unchecked, false memories are remembered as truth. In extreme cases, engagement with untrue memories can express itself as false memory syndrome. For Lucy, she displays some but not all of the criteria for FMS, specifically the centering of her new identity around the false memories. Everyone has memory errors or biases, but we do not make it the core of who we are. Lucy's entire identity was altered, and around the lie Ford put in her head. From this core issue, pseudo-memories were developed around it to help reinforce the original falsehood. Another technique was related to a psychiatric procedure experimented with in the 1950s and 60s called psychic driving. In essence, this practice involved using looped tapes and audio messages. They were played for the patient over and over hundreds of thousands of times. Eventually, they could break down the patient's personality and imprint a new one on top of it. Usually this was done in conjunction with large doses of LSD. A lie told enough times eventually becomes the truth. While Ford's technique of placing Lucy in a flea circus used different techniques, one could argue that the astrolabe behaves in a similar manner. Sitting in the bleachers, Lucy watches the false version of her family perform over and over, a never-ending show put on solely for her benefit. Over time, it became her reality. Once this thought was driven into her head, confabulation does the rest. She filled in the blank spots of her head with a history that does not exist. This is similar to the math involved in increasing the resolution of a photograph. The algorithm sees the pixels that truly exist, then guesses about the gaps in between to form a higher quality image. Unfortunately for the brain, these presumptions can lead to falsehoods. The gap in our recollection is filled with things that are not necessarily true. Lucy is given a concrete snapshot due to Ford's construct that she is part of the family, that Augustus is her son. Based upon this one belief, then his future wife is her daughter-in-law. Their children are her grandkids. The history of Augustus's true mother must be hers. Instead of being responsible for the disaster, she survived it despite losing her husband. It's a snowball effect of presumptions that solidify as long-term memory despite being based on a false memory, one planted by an outside force. Bedazzled by the imagery, Nona watches from a distance. Witnessing their dangerous stunts gets her emotionally invested, giving her a degree of anxiety, making her more concerned about supervising their dangerous antics than questioning the false reality she finds herself in. Augustus is strung up and could potentially be injured by a knife thrown by Frazee, where Tala and Queepy reside on an out-of-control merry-go-round that can send them flying. Dion stands at the end of a balancing act where he could fall and injure himself. What is an easy way to get people to not question something? Distract them. Keep them anxious about something else. At that point, our fight or flight response triggers. It concerns itself with the perceived threat rather than the lie before your eyes, whether that threat be real or imagined. All Lucy needs to do is lift up a mask and see that her family are actually a pack of fleas. But emotionally, she is more concerned about their safety rather than take this simple step. After Raz resolves each of the dangerous performances, Nona comments that she no longer has to worry, that this member of the family is safe, giving her temporary relief until the show starts all over again. This is one clever way to keep her mind actively engaged in the illusion. There is another, which is uncovered when Raz opens the mental vault entitled The Deluge of Grulovia. Mass protests were surging through the nation of Grulovia. We see Lucy's sister, Marona, and brother-in-law, Lazarus, at the front. The Tsar Theodore Malik ordered her to force them to disband. She brought on the rain, but the protesters remained, refusing to leave. The extra water caused the dam to break, and the people were caught up in the disaster. This led to the deaths of countless citizens who were swept away, including Lucy's sister. The guilt and extreme negative emotion that emerged from this incident led to the Maligula complex usurping her conscious ego. The rest is history. One can only imagine the degree of negative emotions stemming from the trauma of realizing she is responsible for the death of so many, including her own family. As we discussed in Bob's Bottles, the pleasure-pain principle dictates that we attempt to avoid pain at all cost. Ford comes along and alters her psyche, tricking her into believing that she is not Lucy, but her dead sister Marona. As a result, the guilt and negative emotion which summoned the demon of Maligula was pacified. She didn't need to feel bad anymore. She believed herself to be Morona and was never responsible for the death of a sibling. It would be preferable to not have to contend with the truth to avoid the pain of remembering her sin. If she questioned the circus, she risks being forced to relive that pain. It is easier to believe the lie rather than be forced to feel bad again. This, combined with the constant distraction of her family in danger, made Lucy engage with this false version of reality for many years. In theory, Ford's construct would be permanent, but it wasn't. Over time, Lucy's mind began to question what she knows, developing an itch that something wasn't quite right. Eventually, she found a way out of the circus, a loophole to escape. Despite his best machinations, some part of her inner self sought to escape the construct, and she found one. A teacup. A vessel containing the only liquid within the circus. Ford conditioned her to be afraid of water, planting the idea of the curse of the Galoccio, making her afraid to go towards the one place that would lead to her liberation. No one would expect her to dive headfirst into that water. The gateway taking her to other parts of her mind. Inside was a partition she hid away, a private world safe from the construct where she could piece together the lost fragments of her memories, sewing together a quilt so that, hopefully, her old self could be reclaimed. Unfortunately, she had no way of knowing what would happen when she did. What was waiting on the other side of that door? We'll take a look at this next time in Nona's Quilts. See you then. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe to receive updates on future uploads. If you would like to help support the channel, a Patreon has been set up and the link is in the description below. Have a great day and peace be with you all.